Hey everyone, my name is Girish, and in this video I will show you how to explore some of the most commonly used DynamoDB APIs through Postman, which, as you may already know, is an API client that can be used to make HTTP requests, and it's 100% free. But before we get started, here's a quick introduction to DynamoDB. What is DynamoDB? DynamoDB is a fast and flexible NoSQL database from AWS that is meant for any scale. And that means it doesn't matter if you measure the size of your database in kilobytes or petabytes, or if you expect hundreds of requests per second or millions of requests per second from your application, DynamoDB can handle it just fine. And it is fully managed, which means that you don't have to worry about operating system maintenance, database upgrades, security patches, licensing, etc. AWS takes care of all of that for you. In fact, there aren't even any maintenance windows for DynamoDB. And it's highly available. So if your table is in just one region, then you get 4 nines as your availability SLA. And if you decide to use the global tables feature, which lets you create active replicas in multiple regions across the world that are automatically in sync with each other, then your availability SLA goes up to 5 nines. Some people don't know this, but Amazon's retail website uses DynamoDB behind the scenes. And last year, on Prime Day, DynamoDB handled trillions of requests just in that one day. And at its peak, it processed around 40 million requests per second. And the best part is that its performance is measured in single-digit millisecond latency. And finally, your data is always encrypted, both at rest and also in transit, because all APIs use HTTPS. All right, now let's go check out some of DynamoDB's APIs. All right, first let's get the Postman app by going to postman.com and clicking the download button at the top right corner. And once you download and install the app, launch the app. Here we go. So click on create a request, and as you can see, it's expecting the URL, the type of request, the request body, authorization, headers, parameters, etc. Okay, so let's look up the API documentation. So I'm just going to go up here and search for DynamoDB API. The first result is what I was looking for. On the left sidebar, I'm going to expand Amazon DynamoDB, and here's all the API calls. As you can see, there's create table, batch, get item, list backups, a bunch of APIs that we can play with. But for starters, I'm going to pick something pretty simple. I just want to, let's say, pick list tables. This one returns an array of table names associated with the current account and endpoint. The request body takes 2 parameters, and neither of them are required. So this seems pretty simple and straightforward. I'm going to click on example up here on the right sidebar, and I can see sample request in here. It's a post request, and the host, this represents the API URL, is supposed to be dynamodb.region. So we could pick, let's say, US East 1 or US West 2 .domain, which is amazonaws.com. There are a bunch of other headers in here, but the only ones that you need to set are authorization and XAMZ target. This attribute tells you what API action to target. So let's start with that. I'm going to copy this header name. I'm going to go up here, set the header to list tables. This is in the headers tab, and also remember Here it was a post request, so let's set the request type to post, and the host should be DynamoDB dot whatever region we want to pick dot Amazon AWS.com. So let me grab that URL, paste it up here. Let's see what happens when we hit send. Yeah, as we expected, you're getting an auth error. I'm going to zoom in a little. Okay, the auth error. So let's fix that by creating a user account. Let's go to console, click on IAM, click on users, zoom in a little bit. I'm going to click on add user. I'm going to call it Postman user. We'll need programmatic access, permissions. I'm going to try to see if I can attach a policy directly. Search for Dynamo. So just for this testing purposes, I'm going to give full access. I'm going to create user, and I should get the access key ID and the secret access key. So I'm going to download this, but for now I'm just going to copy this access key ID and secret access key to my scratchpad here. Now let's go back to Postman and click on Authorization tab. Here in Type, let's select AWS Signature, and here's where the access key and the secret key comes into play. So let's copy and paste what we got from the previous step. And this is important. Whatever URL, whatever region you mentioned here has to match the one that you mentioned here. So in this case, I'm going to set it to US West 2. It says it's optional if you leave it blank, but it doesn't work if you leave it blank. You have to select the service name and the region. So I'm going to set it to DynamoDB US West 2. And don't worry about the access key and secret key. I'm going to delete the account after this. So we go back to body. Also remember, DynamoDB is expecting this post request to have a body, even if it's empty JSON. So I'm going to select the body type to raw and set the text to JSON, and then send an empty object. I'm going to hit send. Let's see what happens. Hey, look, we got an answer. We got a response that says table names, and then it's an empty collection, which makes sense because we haven't created a table yet. So let's test something real quick. Let's go to our console and create a table. From here, we'll try to create a table from the APIs as well, but just for testing the list tables API call, let's create something right here. I'm just going to call it test, or I'll call it Postman test. Partition key, I'm just going to call user ID, leave it as string. Everything else is fine. I'm going to hit create, and while I get this alert, actually no alerts in here, I'm going to go back to Postman, and I'm going to hit send with the same call, and there it is. Our table showed up. Okay, let's do another one. We just created this table called Postman test. Let's see. Yeah, here's one. Describe table. This API call returns information about a table, and the request syntax is a JSON object that has only one parameter, which is the table name, which is required, which makes sense because you're trying to get information about a specific table. Let's look at the example. It's still a post request. Authorization is still there. the XAMZ target is set to describe table with the request body set to the table name. So let's do that. Let's go back to Postman, and you can right click here and you can say duplicate tab. The benefit of this is it duplicates the exact API call, so you don't have to go ahead and set the authorization and everything all over again. You could just go to the headers. Instead of list tables, we are targeting describe table. Go to the body. Instead of an empty request body, we will pass in the name of the table that we just created. Hit send. Here we go. So we get our table back. We see here's the attribute definition of our partition key, which is set to user ID. It's of type string, the table name, and the table ARN, status, all that good stuff. Now before we proceed to explore other APIs, I wanted to give you a quick tip. So if you want to organize all your APIs in one group, you have this concept of collections here. So you can go create a new collection. I'll call it DynamoDB test, and you can go to the authorization tab and select AWS signature authorization, and then that way, once you create this collection and you move these APIs under this collection, you don't have to set the authorization for each call. So in this case, so this is a describe call, right? Yep, a describe table. So I'm going to say save as the request name. I'm going to call it describe table, and I'll just select this collection and I'll save it to that. Likewise, this one was a list tables call, so I'm going to save this as list tables under the same collection. So if you expand the collection here, you can see that it has both describe table and list tables. So now what I can do is, in the authorization section, instead of explicitly setting it here, I could just go up here and say inherit auth from parent, and I can hit save. So if I hit send, still an empty object, it should still work, and it does, no problem. Same thing with describe table too. I'm going to go to authorization. I'm going to say inherit auth from parent, which obviously grabs it from the collection, and I'm going to hit send, and it continues to work. Another benefit of working with collections is that you get to share them by exporting them, or you can import someone else's collection. So in this case, let's work with a collection that I had created in the past. It's basically just a JSON object, and I named it DynamoDB APIs. I'm going to hit import, and here it is. So there's about 14 requests: create table, describe table, put item, get item, and we'll walk through some of them. And I'm going to publish this collection to my GitHub account, which I will link in the description below. You can grab it from there. But I want to make sure that I have set the auth properly, so I'm going to go click on edit. I'm going to click on authorization. Yep, it's empty. So let me first set the access key and also the secret key. The other two remain the same. I'm still interested in US West 2. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to create a table. Let's look at the body. So this is a table. It's called books, primary partition key, sort key. They both are of type string, and the billing mode is paper request. So I'm going to hit send. Let's see if it creates a table named books, and it did. Alright, I'm going to quickly do a describe call. Look at the headers, it says describe table, table name is books. I'm going to hit send, and yep, there it is. paper request. I have the table ID, table ARN. The billing mode is set to paper request. Now let's try to put an item into this table. So my item has a partition key, which is an author, and my sort key, which is a book, and then I have 3 additional properties: year first published, approximate sales, and original language. So I'm going to hit send here, and I get a 200 back. So now let's try to fetch the item that we just created. The headers says get item, and the body has the primary key. So I'm going to hit send, and I do not get any results back because this partition key and sort key does not match this partition key and sort key. Here the author is Charles Dickens, and the sort key is Book A Tale of Two Cities. Here it's J.D. Salinger and The Catcher in the Rye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this partition key sort key combination. I'm going to go to get item, and I'm going to replace it here. Alright, let's try to fetch this. Here we go. We got the item back. So likewise, you can go through each of the items or API calls in this collection, and you can play with it, make some tweaks if you'd like. For example, in this query API call, we have the table name, books, limit set to 3, we have the projection expression that looks for a specific partition key, and it does a range query. On the sort key, you just hit send, it should return just that one book. There's also a batch write item call. If you look at the body, how many items are there in here? There's a 1 put request, 2 put request, 3, 4, and then there's also delete request. So I'm just gonna make this call. Okay, we got 0 unprocessed items, which means all these requests were processed. That includes a delete request and all these put requests. Now if you want to go make a scan call, just make sure the target is set to scan, body set to the proper table name, hit send, and all the items we just inserted are returned, and the original item that we first created is not here because that was deleted in the batch request. Last thing, if you just want to go delete this table, again make sure that the target is set to delete table, body is set properly, hit send, the table start is set to deleting. Now remember our first call of list tables, so if you make a call right now, it should not return books. Yep, it doesn't. And if you want to delete the Postman test too, you can do that real quick. That start is also set to deleting. Just make a call here real quick, and it's gone. Well, that's all I had for you guys today. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below, and I will answer as soon as I get a chance. Until next time, please stay safe. Follow me on Twitter at Girish Rajni, or you can email me at 2girish@gmail.com. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.